Welcome to the Explainer. So let's jump right in. I want you to do something super simple for me. Just imagine it's nighttime and you've just reached out and flipped off a modern light switch. Boom. Instantly, you are plunged into total, inescapable darkness. Like you can't even see the hand in front of your face. For us today, that's just a temporary annoyance before we check our glowing screens or hit a dimmer switch. But for almost all of human history, that switch literally didn't exist. When the sun went down, the world went completely, absolutely black. 300,000. Let that massive number sink in for a second. For over 300,000 years, our ancestors spent nearly half of their entire lives in absolute pitch-black darkness. Just imagine half of your very existence shrouded in shadow, often with absolutely nothing to push that darkness back. Which brings us to the absolute core mystery of this explainer. What did they actually do with all those hours? I mean, think about it. When you can't work, you can't travel safely, and you literally can't even see the person sitting right next to you, how do you spend half your life? Well, the answer is absolutely fascinating. And honestly, it is going to completely reframe our modern understanding of sleep, the origins of human culture, and even your own biology. All right, let's move to our first major shift, Section 1, a world without light, and the discovery of fire, and the 30-foot bubble. So before controlled fire, human nights were frankly terrifying. When dusk rolled around, early humans behaved pretty much like other primates do today. They found shelter, they stayed completely still, and they tried really, really hard not to move. Why? Because the night just didn't belong to us. It belonged to predators with way better night vision. We're talking leopards, hyenas, and wolves. Stepping outside in the dark literally meant becoming prey. But then, roughly a million years ago, with the earliest clear evidence coming from Wonderwork Cave in South Africa, everything changed. The invention of controlled fire created this rough 30-foot safety bubble. And most importantly, it extended the day by 2 to 4 hours. See, fire wasn't just a heater or a cooking stove, it was a physical force field. Step outside that 30-foot circle and, well, your risk of becoming a meal spiked. But inside the bubble, we humans just gained up to 4 completely new usable hours that had never existed before in human history. So what happens when you hand early humans 4 extra hours of safety and light? This brings us to Section 2, the first theater and the shift in conversation. Anthropologist Polly Weissner spent years recording conversations among the Juhansi people of the Kalahari just to see how the presence of a nighttime fire fundamentally changes human behavior. And looking at this widescreen layout right here, you can really see the cultural pivot. During the day, conversation was almost entirely practical, Planning ants, discussing logistics, airing daily complaints. It's all business. But under the glow of the nighttime fire, the conversation completely transforms. The vast majority of the dialogue suddenly becomes stories, myths, jokes, and tales of distant people and places. The crucial takeaway here is that firelight literally birthed human imagination. That 30-foot bubble was our first theater, our first classroom, and really the space where shared human culture truly took shape. But the story of our ancient nights isn't just about hanging out awake around the fire. Let's get into Section 3, the forgotten two-phase sleep, and discovering the lost rhythm. Historian Roger Eckrich spent over a decade digging through centuries of historical records, diaries, court documents, ancient literature, prayer books, the whole shebang. And he found something that completely shatters how we live today. Are you ready for this? An uninterrupted, single 8-hour block of sleep is a purely modern anomaly. Yep. Instead of one long sleep, he repeatedly found historical references to second sleep. Before artificial light totally flooded our bedrooms, humans naturally slept in 2 distinct chunks. They'd sleep for roughly 4 hours, then wake up for a 1 to 2 hour period, smack in the absolute middle of the night, and then go back to sleep for a second sleep of another 4 hours until dawn. This wasn't insomnia, it wasn't some weird fluke, it was just the normal, natural biological rhythm of the human species. And that middle of the night waking window, the midnight window, wasn't spent tossing and turning either. Historical records show people praying, visiting neighbors, or just lying quietly in the dark. Old medical texts actually praise this exact window as the absolute best time for calm reflection and processing dreams. For centuries, modern translators just assumed all these references to a first and second sleep were quirky figures of speech, simply because we'd completely lost the ability to imagine sleeping any other way. Now, if you're sitting there skeptical that this is really how human beings are wired, let's look at a fascinating 1992 experiment by researcher Thomas Fear. Volunteers were placed in conditions mimicking the pre-fire world. We're talking a whole month with 14 hours of daily inescapable darkness. And guess what? Within weeks, without even being instructed to do so, every single participant naturally reverted right back to this two-phase sleep pattern. Hormone readings showed elevated prolactin, which is a state associated with calm, meditative feelings, totally distinct from ordinary wakefulness. They biologically produced a specific hormone to create a calm, reflective state precisely during that midnight waking window. It is quite literally hardwired right into our biology. So, what on earth happened to this natural rhythm? That brings us to Section 4, the death of darkness and erasing the night. How did humanity so rapidly destroy a biological rhythm that we hold onto for hundreds of thousands of years? Well, the answer, of course, is human engineering. We essentially declared a technological war on the dark. Take the word curfew, for example. Did you know it actually traces back to the French phrase for cover fire? In many medieval towns, darkness was entirely expected, and a curfew was literally a nightly signal for households to extinguish their flames. In fact, walking outside after dark without a lantern was highly suspicious and often explicitly against the law. Night carry a very real, tangible fear, just a primal leftover from those early days of dodging predators outside the 30-foot bubble. But then, we systematically erased that darkness. And look how insanely fast it happened. In the 1600s, street lamps start popping up in major cities like Paris and London. Moving into the 1800s, candles get cheaper and gas lighting spreads like wildfire. And then, the final blow. 1879, Edison's electric bulb arrives on the scene. Within just a single generation, the deep, inescapable darkness that humans had evolved alongside for hundreds of thousands of years was effectively wiped off the map. We just replaced the stars and the quiet night with relentless artificial light. Which brings us right to you right now, Section 5, your ancient internal clock and the modern conflict. Every single night, you are living out a massive tension between our deeply ancient biology and our highly modern environment. The darkness is gone, but the biological clock expecting that darkness, the same clock that spent 300,000 years in the pitch black, is still ticking away inside your brain. Today, we blast our eyes with screens for hours after sunset, and this blue light actively suppresses melatonin production. It quite literally confuses your ancient internal clock, making your body think the sun is still high up in the sky. But hey, there is a very hopeful note here. Even a short break, like just a week of camping without artificial light, has been shown to rapidly reset your melatonin timing back to a natural sunset rhythm. See, your body hasn't forgotten the old ways. It's just being drowned out by the constant noise of modern light. And that leaves us with this final, profound question to wrap things up. What if waking up at 2 a.m. isn't a malfunction, but an ancient pattern resurfacing? Seriously, the next time you find yourself wide awake in the absolute middle of the night, feeling super frustrated and just staring at the ceiling, I want you to remember this explainer. Maybe your brain isn't broken. Maybe it's just an echo from a time when we traded the Milky Way for a light switch. An echo of that midnight window waiting for you to process a dream, reflect in the quiet, and just be perfectly, naturally human. Something to think about tonight.